Hi, everyone, and welcome to Vice Cubes. I'm Raven Aiko, your host. Thank you for joining me today. Please like, share, and subscribe. I am on Spreaker, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Mixcloud, Castbox, and YouTube. Come follow me on Instagram at Vice Cubes, where I often share pics that correlate with each episode. And come visit my website at vicecubespodcast.com. You can also send me an email at vicecubes@gmail.com. So today I'm going to be talking about the 1996 Honolulu Hostage Crisis. Listener discretion is advised. 28-year-old John Miranda was a former employee of Seal Masters of Hawaii, and that's a weatherproofing business that was located on Sand Island of Honolulu. After 4 years, Miranda was fired from Seal Masters. Miranda was in a bad way. He had no money, no house, no job, and that enraged him. He felt as though his firing was racially motivated because he was part Hawaiian. John Miranda was a big man. He stood nearly 6'5" tall, but he was described by some as a gentle giant. On February 6, 1996, just before 7 a.m., John Miranda went into the Seal Masters of Hawaii building armed with a sawed-off shotgun and a knife. According to Byron Onsai, a worker at Seal Masters, Miranda entered saying, quote, "Good morning, guys. You remember me?" Unquote. Miranda began making his demands. He wanted $20,000 in cash. Harry Lee was the owner of the company. He was prepared to accept the deal and pay Miranda whatever he wanted at that point, but his wife insisted on calling the police instead. Seeing that he was not going to have his demands met, Miranda took 5 hostages, all employees of the company, including Onsai, who Miranda instructed to bind the other employees with duct tape. About 45 minutes into the ordeal, Miranda opened fire, shooting Guy George in the right leg, nearly blowing it off. Guy George was Miranda's former supervisor and vice president of the company. He is also the one that personally fired Miranda. At some point during the standoff, Miranda called 2 local radio stations and the Honolulu Advertiser and told them what he was doing. He said that he had been stressed out since losing his job and that he just lost it. The radio station presenters tried to talk him down and implored him to surrender peacefully. He refused, saying that he had already been to jail and he had no intention of going back. When asked how this was going to end, Miranda said, quote, "with a gun bang," unquote. 6 years prior to the standoff, he was arrested for abuse and ordered to undergo substance abuse treatment and counseling. He didn't go to treatment. Outside the building, Hawaii Police Department responded quickly and had cordoned off the building. SWAT teams were called in and sharpshooters got into position around the building. At this time, local news crews had also showed up and began broadcasting live. Footage of this event was later shown in an episode of World's Scariest Police Shootouts. Early on in the ordeal, Miranda dragged George to an open window to show police that he had already shot a hostage. At some point, Miranda was distracted and took his eyes off of George. George took his chance to escape and climbed out of the open window and fell about 10 feet to the ground and crawled and dragged himself to safety. That was a pretty dramatic scene. I remember watching that as it unfolded on the news that day. So when Miranda realized that George had escaped, he became enraged and he grabbed another hostage, 30-year-old Tom McNeil. Miranda used duct tape to tape the shotgun to the back of McNeil's head and then taping his own hand to the trigger. He then exited the building with 4 hostages, ordering them to walk down the stairs to the street below. Now, I've read accounts where it said that he had exited the building to try and get Mr. George back. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I read that in an account. So this is the scene that we all remember, him coming out of the door with the hostages. I remember being glued to the TV watching the coverage of this event. At this time, 3 of the hostages ran to safety, leaving only McNeil with Miranda. Miranda led McNeil back to the top of the stairs and tried to regain entrance into the building. But what they didn't know was that SWAT had entered through another door and locked that door so Miranda and McNeil could not get back in. They remained at the top of the stairs as the standoff continued for several hours. I think all in all, it lasted about 7 hours. So during this time, police pleaded with Miranda to surrender. He refused. After hours had passed, at around 2:30 p.m., Miranda led McNeil back down the stairs to the street. On the street, Miranda realized that they were surrounded on all sides by police. He ordered McNeil to count down from 60 to 0. Miranda told McNeil that he would execute him once he reached 0. McNeil refused to count down to his own death, so Miranda started the countdown. Once Miranda reached 13, McNeil made his move. He spun around, pushed the barrel of the gun away from his head, and tried to break free. Miranda fired twice and missed. Police were forced into action, shooting Miranda in the chest and abdomen as McNeil broke free. Miranda was taken to the Queens Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead at 2:55 p.m. Guy George had been taken to that same hospital earlier in the day, and he was in critical condition. McNeil suffered only a few minor injuries during his struggle with Miranda. He was taken to St. Francis Medical Hospital, where he was treated for cuts and bruises, but thankfully no gunshot wounds. By the time he was shot, members of Miranda's family had arrived on the scene. Miranda's older brother had to be tackled and restrained by police as he ran toward his brother as the shots rang out. After this incident, police were criticized for not allowing the family of Miranda to speak directly to him. Police said that they were following the methods that have been laid out for these types of situations. Sometimes family members can make things worse, or if the hostage taker's intention is suicide by cop, they would simply use the opportunity to say goodbye. Police are trained to protect as many people as possible in hostage situations. So Tom McNeil is now a resident of Canada. He gave an interview in 2017 with the Edmonton Journal. He's lucky to be alive and he knows it. He talked about how the ordeal changed his view on life and made him appreciate everything that he has. During his interview, he said that what he felt that day was beyond fear. And after Miranda had been shot and lay dying, McNeil said that he looked over at Miranda and didn't see the shotgun that had been taped to his head for the last 6 hours. At that point, he realized that it was still attached to his head. He ripped the duct tape and the gun off his own head. I can't even imagine what that must have felt like. So when McNeil described the day, he kind of described that time when Miranda started the countdown. And he said that he just knew that he was going to be shot. He felt that if the police didn't do anything by the time, Miranda counted down to 10, he felt that was it for him. So he kind of had to think, what he was going to do. And in his head, he came up with that plan to just kind of spin away and get the gun away from his head. And thank goodness, because it worked for him. So Miranda's girlfriend at the time was 32-year-old Sherry Lynn Holmes. She had reportedly been missing since January 31st, 1996. And that was just 6 days before that hostage standoff. According to police, Miranda had told friends that he had killed her. Acting on an informant's tip, police searched Kawainui Marsh for her body with a team of cadaver dogs. On March 29th, 1996, police found a cardboard box buried in a shallow grave only a few yards off Kapa'a Quarry Road. Inside the box was a highly decomposed body bound by rope and duct tape and a plastic bag over the head. Investigators, using the help of Army Identification Lab in Honolulu, were able to positively identify the body of Sherry Lynn Holmes using DNA and photo imaging technology. She had died of asphyxiation. So Tom McNeil, as I said, 6 days after the incident, he married his fiance. He didn't want to wait anymore. He just appreciated life and just, wanted to live. He lived in Hawaii for another 21 years before moving back to Canada, where he was originally from, because of health issues. The company Steel Masters of Hawaii is still located at Sand Island. So let's talk about suicide by cop. Suicide by cop is a method in which a suicidal individual deliberately behaves in a threatening manner with intent to provoke a lethal response from a public safety or law enforcement officer. Some examples of suicide by cop incidents include pointing a firearm, even if it's a toy gun, at an officer or a bystander, or running toward an officer with a knife or other dangerous object. Their intention is to give the officer no choice but to use lethal force to stop the threat. Unfortunately, we see a lot of this suicide by cop lately. I think that it's just a horrible way to go. You affect the people around you. You affect the officer as well for the rest of his life, knowing that, he had to shoot someone. Much of the information for this episode came from Hawaii News Now, the Edmonton Journal, Wikipedia, and the book Honolulu Homicide, Murder and Mayhem in Paradise, and that's written by retired HPD Major Gary Diaz. This book also has a chapter about the Xerox mass shooting that I covered in episode 3. That episode also, was a work-related shooting, disgruntled employee that really didn't have to happen. Again, we talk about mental health and how important it is to recognize the signs in yourself, in your coworker, in your family members, and then do everything you can to get them help. Okay, so I want to take a little bit of a turn here. With all the negativity and murder and anger that I cover in these episodes, I want to end this one with a positive request. So I recently have come across something on YouTube. It's a channel where a very wealthy person pays it forward. I know you guys know what pays it forward means. So he just buys truckloads of food and supplies and donates them to shelters or homeless. He buys cars and houses for people. He just does amazing things with his money. And with all the good that he does, you still hear people talk a lot of negative things about him, saying that he shouldn't film these things, that it lessens the intent. My response to this is that not only does it show that there are amazing people in the world that do these types of things, they can be used as something to look forward to, or something, that you can do as an example as well. But it also shows how much of a problem people have seeing positive things. People have no problem, watching the negative stuff, the filth and the murder. Recently, the riots being shown over and over again on TV. People don't have a problem watching that over and over again, but they apparently do have a problem seeing someone doing good in the world. And I think that just speaks to, where we've come, how far we've come away from wanting to see the positive in things and wanting to see the good in people. And that's, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. It's human nature, basically. It's we're all human, and that's how we are. I'm the same way sometimes. But, no matter how angry this world is, specifically our country, and believe me, turn on any news channel, our country is angry about everything, it seems. We've lost the ability to disagree with each other and still have respect for each other. Even our politicians, who are supposed to be our leaders, they resort to mudslinging and the name calling and the just the ugliness that they try to bring out in each other, and really it